Imagine this. A person so rich they couldn't spend their fortune in 10 lifetimes if they tried. Now take that fortune and multiply it until it seems almost fictional. You're probably picturing someone like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, or another billionaire whose face splashes across the headlines as often as we check our phones. We're surrounded by discussions about wealth inequality, and how the ultra-wealthy impact our lives. Yet how often do we stop to ask, how does all that money affect them? There's no doubt that too much wealth changes a person, and that change doesn't always lead in a healthy direction. With a fortune large enough to shield one from the struggles of daily life, an individual can become detached, disinterested, or, at times, seemingly invincible. In fact, history shows us that when a select few accumulate extreme wealth, it can destabilize entire societies. But beyond society, what happens when individuals like Musk, who have amassed their fortunes and empires, become seemingly untouchable? Do they feel above consequence, beyond criticism, and free to act as they wish? This video explores the rarely told side of the story, how boundless wealth can be as much a burden as a blessing. In fact, Elon Musk's behavior, whether promoting cryptocurrencies on a whim or proposing to buy social media platforms, seems like a powerful case study in the pitfalls of unchecked influence. It's like he's saying, "I have the money, what can't I do?" But this assumption can prove dangerous, not only for society but for Musk himself. Imagine believing you're immune to any limits, societal or otherwise. In the coming sections, we'll ask the hard questions. Has Musk really become detached from reality, or is he just a reflection of what happens when money knows no bounds? And we'll also dig into the psychology of the ultra-wealthy, a realm where billions of dollars and endless privilege can lead to consequences no one ever warns you about. Now, let's turn that lens inward. Imagine waking up every day, knowing you could buy anything, influence anyone, and possibly sway public opinion with a single tweet. That's not a hypothetical for some. It's the daily reality of the wealthiest individuals on the planet. For Elon Musk, it's his playground. Recently, he's been on a mission encouraging people to register to vote, and to vote for Trump, investing heavily in what some see as a bid to shape American politics. But what's his endgame? And how does having this much power change a person? It's tempting to view Musk's attempts at political influence as a billionaire simply playing his cards. Yet his actions reveal something more complex and perhaps unsettling. When someone's wealth exceeds what they could ever spend, they're left with another pursuit: influence. It's no longer about money, but about control, and that can be more intoxicating than any material possession. Musk's ambitions go beyond business, they're societal. He seems to believe he has solutions, that he can fix things the rest of us are struggling to get right. But is he really fixing anything? Or is this just an experiment in seeing how far his influence can stretch? We see it in his approach to Twitter, to SpaceX, to his bold moves in cryptocurrency. There's a pattern here that's hard to ignore. In each case, Musk seems to be saying, "I think I can do anything I want." And, in his world, perhaps he can. But where does that leave the rest of us? This section raises another fundamental question. Can anyone with such wealth and power remain tethered to reality? And if they do begin to lose their marbles in this seemingly limitless sandbox, what are the consequences for them, for us, and for democracy itself? In the next section, we'll dive deeper into how this thirst for control plays out, not just in Musk's world, but in the broader circles of the ultra-wealthy, and the potential dangers lurking when unchecked influence starts to shape the world around them. Here's the paradox of immense wealth. It can insulate and isolate. Imagine having a fortune so vast it shields you from the everyday realities most people face: budgeting, healthcare worries, the ups and downs of an unstable economy. Over time, this kind of isolation doesn't just separate you financially, it changes the way you see the world. And while it might seem like a dream to live in a bubble of privilege, it can lead to detachment from reality. When you start to feel invincible, invincibility can feel like truth. Greed and avarice are insatiable desires for wealth and possessions that often lead some individuals to prioritize self-interest over the well-being of others. Those trapped by these vices walk a dangerous path, as their relentless pursuit of material gain can foster harmful behaviors such as exploitation, dishonesty, and corruption. This unchecked desire not only erodes personal relationships and moral integrity, but also contributes to societal inequality, environmental degradation, and a decline in communal trust, ultimately threatening the fabric of democracy and humanity itself. Now here's the twist. Not all the ultra-wealthy fall into these patterns. In fact, many billionaires feel the weight of their wealth and understand the impact it has on society. Contrary to the stereotype, some of America's richest citizens, especially among the college-educated elite, increasingly vote for progressive policies and candidates who champion social welfare, tax reform, and fair wages. From 2016 to 2020, the top 5% of American earners became one of the most democratic-leaning groups, a surprising shift from the traditional image of the wealthy conservative. But why? This is where things get interesting. While Musk and a small group of ultra-wealthy individuals may wield their power openly, some of the wealthiest Democrats are actively voting against their immediate financial interests to support long-term societal change. What motivates these wealthy progressives? Is it guilt, foresight, or maybe even a desire to protect a social fabric they know is fraying? Or could it be something deeper? A recognition that unchecked wealth might be as harmful to the rich as it is to the poor. In our next section, we'll explore the motivations driving these wealthy progressives who, despite their privilege, are urging reforms that could reshape the economic landscape. And we'll contrast this with the choices of wealthy conservatives who cling to lower taxes and minimal regulation, as well as the curious trend of middle and lower class voters backing policies that protect the wealthy. Why would those with less support policies that serve those with more? It's a question that takes us to the heart of America's current political and economic paradox. Let's dig into that paradox. Why would middle and lower income Americans vote in ways that seem to go against their own interests? To understand this, we need to explore the divide between perception and reality when it comes to wealth and power. For many Americans, the ultra-wealthy represent not just a class of individuals, but an ideal, an aspiration, even if it's one most will never reach. The idea of making it big fuels the American dream, where anyone could, in theory, rise to the top. And in that dream lies a powerful narrative, one that values self-reliance, freedom from government interference, and the belief that hard work alone can bring prosperity. Yet while this dream persists, the reality for most Americans has become a stark contrast. For many, wages have stagnated while the cost of living has skyrocketed. From healthcare to housing, the basics of life have grown more and more inaccessible. And here's the twist. While many Republican voters see wealth as a symbol of freedom, the truth is that the concentration of wealth is limiting freedoms for the rest of society. Billionaires' influence over industries, public policy, and even cultural narratives can steer the direction of entire economies, sometimes with detrimental effects on working people. Still, some of the wealthiest Americans see this widening wealth gap as unsustainable, even dangerous. Many are acutely aware that a society's stability depends on fairness, opportunity, and trust. If these break down, so does the social contract that keeps society functioning. That's why more and more wealthy Democrats have rallied behind progressive tax reforms, universal health care, and other policies designed to ensure more equal opportunities. They understand that wealth without accountability creates a two-tier system where prosperity for the few comes at the cost of security for everyone else. Does wealth really change your life forever? The question is one that has captivated thinkers, philosophers, and everyday people for centuries. On the surface, wealth seems like the key to happiness, an ultimate answer to life's challenges and struggles. But once we look deeper, the reality becomes more nuanced. Yes, wealth can provide security, freedom, and a wealth of experiences. It can allow people to explore their passions, pursue education, or even shape their communities for the better. Yet, as some of the wealthiest individuals themselves will tell you, happiness and fulfillment are elusive and often remain just out of reach even with wealth. A new movement among wealthy progressives sheds light on a powerful connection between wealth, civic virtue, and happiness. For some affluent Americans, true satisfaction comes not from accumulation, but from using their resources to advance social justice, protect the environment, and uphold democracy. This idea of civitas, the shared sense of responsibility to society, has led many wealthy Democrats to support policies that aim for a more humane and equitable America. They believe that personal happiness can come from contributions to a just world, with wealth becoming a tool for fostering compassion, equity, and shared growth. By embracing reason, empathy, and civic duty, these individuals have found purpose in giving back, suggesting that perhaps wealth's greatest transformation lies in how it enables us to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. But, as we'll see in the next section, while some of the rich are backing policies for a fairer society, many of their conservative counterparts seem entrenched in protecting their wealth at all costs. And for middle and working class Americans voting alongside them, it may be more about the illusion of upward mobility than the reality of their own economic interests. We'll peel back the layers of this complex alliance next, examining how identity, culture, and deeply held beliefs intersect with economic reality. Picture this: two wealthy Americans, each with substantial influence and resources, but with completely different worldviews. On one side, you have the progressive-leaning wealthy, a surprising group of high earners who are calling for higher taxes, better health care, and policies that aim to reduce inequality. On the other, a faction of wealthy conservatives who, despite their wealth, feel threatened by the notion of higher taxes and increased regulation. For them, government intervention feels like an intrusion, a challenge to the idea that success should be rewarded without interference. But what fuels this split? And why are some rich Americans willing to sacrifice their wealth for societal progress while others fight to preserve every penny? What we're seeing isn't just a difference in policy preference, it's a clash of values. Many wealthy progressives, often well-educated and clustered in urban areas, view their privilege as a responsibility. They recognize that society's future relies on a strong, healthy middle class, fair wages, and accessible health care, seeing these as the building blocks of a stable democracy. For them, economic stability for the many is a necessity for the well-being of everyone, including the wealthy. Supporting progressive policies is, to them, not just altruism but self-preservation. They're investing in the long-term security of society itself. On the other side are wealthy conservatives, often backed by a network of middle and working class voters who feel alienated by progressive policies that they see as undermining traditional cultural values. For these voters, taxes, healthcare reforms, and government intervention aren't simply policy issues. They're questions of independence and self-reliance. This is where identity politics intersect with economics. Many feel that these policies force them to conform to a system that prioritizes the collective over individual freedom. This alignment keeps the wealthy conservatives powerful, backed by a base that, perhaps unknowingly, helps preserve a structure that's less beneficial to them than they might think. But what's driving these middle and lower-income Americans to support the wealthy conservative agenda? Are they voting for an idea of freedom they hope to achieve or clinging to values they feel are threatened? In our final section, we'll dig into these questions, examining how these dynamics shape not just elections, but the very future of American society. And we'll explore what this means for democracy itself. Can it survive when wealth seems to push us ever further apart? At the heart of America's wealth divide lies a question that is more pressing than ever. What kind of society do we want to create? The choices we make now, as voters, as citizens, And yes, as consumers, we'll decide if we bridge this gap or let it widen into an unmanageable chasm. Wealth, when concentrated at unprecedented levels, isn't just a financial issue. It becomes a defining force for our collective values, culture, and future. And while the ultra-wealthy have the power to steer the course, they are still just one piece of a much larger puzzle. In recent years, we've seen more and more wealthy progressives throw their support behind policies that prioritize equality, education, and environmental protection. These individuals understand that unchecked wealth disparity is a threat not only to the less fortunate, but to the stability of society as a whole. For them, supporting higher taxes, healthcare access, and fair wages isn't just about taking a political stand. It's about building a society in which prosperity is shared, and everyone has a stake in the future. But will that be enough? With the support of working and middle-class voters, conservative wealth maintains a stronghold, pushing back against regulation and seeking to preserve their interests with fewer social obligations. And this raises a critical question. How can we, as a society, align on values that prioritize well-being over wealth and community over competition? So here we are at a crossroads, one that demands each of us to look closely at the ways wealth shapes our world. Democracy, after all, is not just a set of policies, but a balance of power and responsibility, a balance that tilts precariously in the face of vast inequality. If we can't bridge these divides, we risk a future where influence is sold to the highest bidder, and democracy is little more than an illusion. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the complexities of wealth, power, and responsibility. Here on the Renaissance Spirit channel, we explore the ideas that make a just and equitable world possible, from history and politics to personal growth and social justice. Like the Renaissance itself, a time that saw knowledge rediscovered and innovation redefined, we believe that knowledge and understanding are key to unlocking our potential as individuals and as a society. Dive into our other videos, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more explorations of our shared human journey. And before you go, take our quiz to discover if you have the Renaissance Spirit vibe, Renaissance Spiritus.